This is going to be a quick demonstration of how I put together one of my little pendants. Alright, I've got 4 wires here, 7 inches long. It's 21 gauge square wire. I'm going to mark one of the wires in the middle. It's about 3.5 inches. I'm going to take my standard gauge here that I set up for each one of these cabochons. This cabochon is an 18 by 13 millimeter. Mark it. And I'm going to do some twisting with a pin vise. Let's see. Pin vise, where are you? Alright. Slip this over the end. Hold it with a pair of flat pliers. Hold it tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 twists. Move it up a little bit. 5 twists. Move it up a little bit. 5 twists. And that should be about to the marker. It is. Got one more twist there. Alright. Got one of the wires twisted. That's going to put a little shine on it later on. Now I put that one behind the first wire in the bundle so that I've got 1 wire on top, 2 on the bottom. They're not twisted. Now, unlike a lot of people, I take 4 pieces of tape. 1 on the end. And this is just regular old blue painter's tape. I use it because it puts less glue onto the wires. And you'll see me take the rest of it off later with some alcohol. Put a second one near those twisted parts that I just made. Up a little bit. What I'm doing is gathering all these wires together into a bundle that I can work with. And one more piece of tape right out toward the end. I'm smoothing these wires out as I go because they can be twisted a little bit. And let's get them straightened out a little bit. Alright, I'm going to take that half round, 21 gauge half round piece of wire and find the flat side and fold it toward me. Alright, now we're going to mark this thing before we start wrapping. Again, we have to go to the middle. 4.5. That's 3.5 is the middle. Say it's 4.5, but it's actually 3.5. Alright, I'm going to mark where I'm going to put those wraps. And I've pre-marked it on this stick where I'm going to have the wraps. I'm going to have a wrap here, and then a main wrap all the way across the bottom. And that'll be at the bottom of the stone too. Let's get that out of the way. Pick this one up. I'm going to work in the main section first. I'm going to put that wire up there. Slap it down, start tightening. Fold it over, push down, fold it over, push down, fold it over, push down, fold it over, and push down. Do this all the way down until you hit that second mark. That we made for the main section. Don't expect to do it as fast as I'm doing. It takes a little practice to do it. You'll get there though. Not very difficult wiring technique. You just have to practice. And I would take bronze wire and practice all the time if I was you. Working with bronze wire here, but it actually gives a very nice pendant when you finish. Look of almost like gold, a darker gold, but gold nonetheless. Alright, now we finished the wraps all the way up. Nip it off. I'm going to take and push that up and slip the cutters underneath, clip it off, tighten it down. Now right here I've got a little lump. I'm going to take it out by just pulling it up and pulling it down, and nip it off as well and tighten it. Now I got to work on the other two wraps that were still left. I'll find the flat side of this, about 1/4 of an inch up, fold it, bring it up, right into the marker, pull. Now on this one I'm only going to want 2 wraps on the front side. 1, 2. Now see, there's 2 wraps right there on the front. Lift again, nip it off. And I'm nipping it about halfway to 3/4 of a way across there. Now I'm going to do the same thing to eliminate that bump that I did a while ago. Nip it off about 3/4, and there's the first wrap. Now, do another wrap. That little piece of wire you saw me pick up first was the one for the heavy part of the wrapping. This is light duty stuff here. That's why I used the half on it. Second mark. Slip that up there. Don't lose it. Here we go. And a couple wraps. Clip her off. And pull the bump. And clip it off. Press it down. Alright, we got all the wraps on there. Now we're going to start forming this. I'll move this pad up out of the way a little bit. Now here's the stone. This happens to be unakite here. Now I'm going to form this curve here first on the pendant. I'm going to do that by bending the wire around a Sharpie. Let's go for the smaller Sharpie. I like to make it a little tighter. Now what I'm going to do is bring those wires around and have them just about equal distance across the top there. So you can see they're level. Now, I'm going to put it around the stone itself, and you see that curve matches the bottom of that. It's going to be fitting down in the setting real good that way. Now I'm going to take my flat nose again, pull the wire around, shaping it around that cabochon. About the middle of that cabochon is where I'm bending the wire back up again. And you'll see that shape here in a second. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Pull it around, and then where it crosses is usually a good spot to raise the second one. Alright, so they meet fairly well in the middle, as you can see. Now I'm going to take these pieces of tape off. Instead of trying to unwrap them, I just take and slit them with my nippers. Rid of that. I waste a lot of tape, but that's okay. Makes my job faster, easier. I don't like to reuse the tape a lot of times because it slips, and I don't like it slipping on me. So I use fresh tape each time. Alright, now I'm bringing those two together. I'm going to start making that bail here in a little while. But first, I got to get them tightened together. So I'm going to put a little tape around here to hold it in place while I do the final wrapping on it. That little piece of wire, about 3 inches of wire. And that's just the same square 21 gauge bronze wire that I used on the main frame. And I'm going to take it up about 2 or 3 lengths. Now, because I put that little wire in there, I know to make it face up, I'm going to have to turn it down. So I can put my wire around it right there. Squeeze. And pull it up. And start forming the main section of it. All the binding wire right here for the upper part of the pendant. And that's the bail. Now, I've got that all the way around, about 3 or 4 wraps. Good. I'm going to take my pliers about 3/4 of the way up, hold on to the wire, push it up. That gives me the ability to get up underneath there and clip that wire off a little closer and set it back down again. Same here, I got a little bubble there but not much, so I'm going to pull it up and pull down. That gives me a little being there too, like I did on the other side. Reach up and clip it for the excess. So the basic framework is on its way. Now I'm going to do a little bottom to hold that stone in place on the setting. I'm going to fold in the first wire just beyond that main wrap, and again on the other side fold it in. I'm using the flat nose and the very small flat nose. Again up here, pull it down. This is just above that second bundle. Alright, it's got a little bit of a frame there, but I want that stone to be inserted because it's a little thicker than the actual bundle of wire. I'm going to pull those wires up a little bit to give it room enough to set. There we go. Now I go back in. This half round wire sometimes it will lift up, so I go back in there and press down on the spots where it's coming up. Alright, now I'm going to fit the stone in there. Don't have any fingernails, so it's a little difficult to pick them up off that flat surface. You put the stone in, make sure she fits, slips right in. And you see it's wrapped in there pretty tight. It's a little loose in some spots, so the wire is real soft, so I can push it around to form it where I want it to be. I can do it on a flat surface. You can do it with a mallet. That works too, but a lot of the stones I work with are fragile, so I don't use the hammer as much. And that's a leather hammer. Now, I got to start the bindings. See, I got the bindings here on the back, but I also need them on the front to hold that stone in that setting. I'm going to take right between that first wire and that spiral piece that we made, lift it up, and then I'm going to pull in. That's one side of the brace. Again with the knife, between that first wire and the twisted wire, give it a little bit of lift. And just starts the wire off in the right direction so I don't scratch it up that much. Now, that's the bottom half. Already the stone is set in there pretty good. It's not going to move too much. Again, I'm going back in there and forming that around that stone. Now you see it seats down real good that way. Now, final touches, I'm going to pull here above that bundle and pull down and do the same thing on the other side. Insert that knife blade, and be careful. This one has to be a sharp knife, but you can use a dull knife to do that. Butter knife is probably the best thing, but I use this one because I get it between the wires much easier. Now, I don't like the way this comes down across there, so I pull the wires back by hand just a little bit to expose more of that stone. See? Now, this is usually a little loose at this point, so I go back in with some wider pliers, flat nose pliers, and I tighten that up. That way it makes it permanent and the wires are not moving anywhere. Alright, now, got all this bundled up here to make this pendant, the actual holder of it, the bail if you want. I slide that between the two bundles right there, nip it with the knife blade, and bring it down here, and then I push them apart. That's going to be the start of my bundle, top one. Let's get rid of the tape. Tape's gone. Now, excuse me, I need to use a little bit of alcohol here. And it's not drinking alcohol, this is regular old rubbing alcohol. You can get it in any pharmacy, Walmart, Kmart, wherever you go to shop. This is going to take the glue off there that I left when I took the tape off. Like I said, there wasn't much, and you won't feel much after this alcohol bathing. Put the top back on so it doesn't spill all over my table. Alright, now you have a front side and a back side. This is where we started all those wraps. And what I want to do is from the back side, take the very last wire and pull it toward me. That's going to be your bail. I'll keep those two wires together. Now that leaves us 3 wires on each side on the top. Now I like to use one of the wires, in this case on this side, because these are a little bit further back than these wires. Fold it over to the opposite side, and that's going to be holding my bail together after a while. Now I've got 2 on this side, 3 on this side wires. I'm going to take these 2 because it's going to form the bottom first, and begin to make that little heart that you see on most of my pendants. That's the first one. And the second side, I bring the 3 on top around. And there you can see that heart forming. Work with this bail wire a little bit. The wire moves a lot, so you're going to be moving around a lot with your pliers and your fingers and things like that. Now, bail making pliers, got the large and the small. I'm going to use the small. Usually I don't do any measurements here except eyeball it with my finger at the top, bend it over, and then roll it up behind it. Alright, you can see how the bail is forming. Now I'm going to take flat nose again and bend those wires inward toward this wire that I just made. Lay over to the side. Now, see the bail is forming? I don't need all this wire here, so I'm going to cut that off right at this point, about 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers. I'm going to push in on those 2 wires there to bring it close to the wires here. You can see that there's no gap. I'm going to take this square piece of wire and wrap it around 2 to 3 times. That's going to hold those two together. Clip it right there. Again, I take my needle nose, and those are the next door neighbor kids. If you hear someone screaming, they like to play out here. I don't have a sound room, so you're going to hear extraneous noises like my doves or whatever out there in the yard. Alright, got those 2 pieces of wire. We're going to take it, fold that up, and then I'm going to roll them down with a pair of nice round nose pliers. Grab a hold of one, or both, roll one down a little bit, grab a hold of one and twist it the rest of the way. And you notice I'm using my wrist more than I am on the rest of my body. That wrist gets real important at times, as you'll see here in a minute or two. Again, I grab a hold of that and twist it under, and there. Reason I did that, this top of the bail would slip out of those 2 wires if I didn't have something to hold it back. Those 2 little turns there keep it from rolling out. Alright, now we got the 2 wires here and the 3 wires on top. I work with the 2 bottom wires first. I'm going to put my thumb here to hold it and push this around to the back. Now we got the 2 wires at the back. I'm going to slide my pliers up underneath here and lift it a little bit so they lay flat. Now I'm going to clip it shorter on the bottom one, and you notice I'm keeping those cutters flat here. The other side would make the little points that you see a lot of times. I like to have a nice flat edge. Now here's very important. Bend the wire slightly, grab a hold of it again, and pull it in. That gives that nice, beautiful curve. Clip off the little pieces there. Now I'm going to make this one a little bit longer, so I'm going to cut it off just a little bit further out. Using the square part again, clip it, and roll it. And as you can see, that soft wire will roll pretty quickly. Now we go back to the front, front to the back. Anyway, here's where you have to decide which side it's going to lay on. And in this case, I think I'm going to lay right where it's at. I'm going to form a curve with my thumb around this way. See how those wires come smoothly around there? I'm just using my thumb, letting the wire do its thing. Wire has a mind of its own, so don't expect it to do everything that you ask of it, but it will do mostly. Again, using the flat part, I'm going to trim this outer wire down a little bit. I like to make a cascade or a waterfall effect on all my pendants. That's why you see them the way they are. It looks like the waterfall starts here and then runs down the stone itself. Now, I've got a good bend in it. I'm going to fold her back on itself, and you get a good curve out. Nip off that. Anywhere I see it a little straight instead of a curve, I'm going to nip it off. Now, back to the middle wire. I'm going to cut it just a little bit longer than I did a while ago with the other one. Now the inner wire, I want it to come up short and probably closer to the same level as this one. So I'm going to cut it right about here, which is actually longer than the inside one. So that I can get that same level. Just a matter of doing it enough times, you'll learn that. Repeat, practice, practice, practice. Alright, I bent it back around on itself, and you see they're fairly equal. Now I don't like to make them the same, so you see this one's larger than that one. This is a handmade piece after all, and it's supposed to look handmade. The proportions are not always perfect, and you don't want them to be, because when you get perfect proportions, it starts to throw the eye off a little bit. Now we got that long one. I'm going to bend it into the middle and then put the curve on it. All the way back, and you see it's a little bit longer than the other two. That gives that cascading water effect. And there we have a completed pendant. Very quickly done.